Africa, a continent of breathtaking landscapes, ancient kingdoms, and some of the most diverse wildlife on Earth. Millions of tourists fly in every year chasing sunsets over the Serengeti, camel rides through the Sahara, and safaris through the Congo. But some of those tourists never saw what was coming, because hidden deep inside Africa, behind jungle walls, under desert sand, and inside crumbling cities, are places so dangerous, so dark, and so utterly forgotten by time, that stumbling upon one could be the last adventure you ever take. And the number one place on this list, authorities still haven't explained what happened to the people who went inside. Stay until the end. You'll want to hear this one. We're counting down 15 of the most dangerous, most mysterious, and most disturbing hidden locations across the African continent. Places tourists accidentally discovered while hiking, driving off-road, or simply taking a wrong turn. Some are radioactive. Some are cursed, according to the locals, who refuse to go near them. And at least one is still actively claimed by a shadow organization that doesn't officially exist. This is not your travel brochure. This is what Africa doesn't want you to find. Number 15. The ghost beach of Skeleton Coast, Namibia. Picture this. You're driving along what seems like a perfectly beautiful stretch of Namibian coastline. The Atlantic glitters. The sand is white. And then, out of nowhere, the bones begin. The Skeleton Coast in northwestern Namibia earned its name honestly. For hundreds of miles, the beach is littered with the bleached remains of whales, seals, and shipwrecks. A graveyard so vast it stretches beyond the horizon. Tourists who venture past the marked zones have stumbled onto rusting ship hulls from the 1800s, piles of whale skulls taller than a man, and fog so thick it swallows sound entirely. What most visitors don't know is that this coastline was once one of the most active trade routes in southern Africa, until the fog, the treacherous currents, and the complete absence of fresh water turned it into a killing field. Sailors who survived their wrecks often died within days from thirst and exposure, their skeletons left where they fell. But here's where it gets strange. In 2008, a group of tourists photographing the coast discovered a collapsed wooden structure buried under 3 feet of sand. Inside, the remains of a Portuguese trading vessel and a sealed iron chest containing coins dated 1533. One of the greatest treasure finds in African history, stumbled upon by complete accident. The surrounding waters are still uncharted. Marine biologists have recorded species in this stretch of ocean that appear in no known taxonomy. And locals, the sand bushmen who have lived near this coast for millennia, simply call it the place the land is eating the sea. Number 14. The radioactive ghost town of Wittenum, Northern Cape region, South Africa. From the outside, it looks like an ordinary abandoned mining town. Cracked streets, collapsed rooftops, a rusted water tower leaning at an angle that defies logic. Tourists exploring South Africa's remote Northern Cape have driven into towns just like this one, thinking they'd found an interesting photo opportunity. What they found instead was invisible, odorless, and deadly. Wittenum and several towns like it scattered across South Africa's asbestos mining belt were once thriving industrial communities. At their peak in the 1950s, thousands of families lived, worked, and raised children here. Schools operated. Churches were packed on Sundays. The blue asbestos they mined was shipped worldwide. Then the diagnoses started: mesothelioma, lung cancer, asbestosis. The dust that coated every surface, every wall, every child's playground was killing everything it touched, slowly, invisibly, over decades. The towns were officially abandoned. Warnings were posted. Maps were updated. But the dust never left. Tourists who have entered similar derelict mining zones across South Africa's Northern Cape have later reported mysterious respiratory symptoms. Several have been advised by doctors that their lung scans showed microfiber contamination consistent with asbestos exposure. The buildings still stand. The dust still drifts, and the signs at the edge of town are now so weathered, so faded by the merciless Karoo sun, that some tourists simply don't see them at all. Number 13. The Forest of the Hanging Trees, Democratic Republic of Congo. There are places in the Congo rainforest where the locals will not go. Not because of animals, not because of terrain, but because of what grows there. Deep in the eastern DRC, near the borders of North Kivu province, aid workers and journalists have reported stumbling into groves of trees where human remains, clothing, personal effects, in several documented cases, actual skeletal remains, hang from branches like terrible fruit. These are not ritual sites in any recognized cultural tradition. They are, according to regional historians and former militia members who have spoken on record, the remnants of execution grounds used during the region's decades of armed conflict. Most of the world barely knows is happening. The forest absorbed the evidence. Tourists, mostly adventure travelers and photojournalists who deliberately pushed past safety guidelines, have entered these areas and emerged visibly shaken, some requiring psychological support. Others have not reported their experiences at all. What happened next shocked everyone who heard the account of one German journalist in 2019. He entered one of these groves intending to document it. His camera was recovered 3 weeks later by a UN patrol, 12 kilometers from where he'd entered. The journalist himself was found alive but disoriented near a village he couldn't name. He has never publicly discussed what he saw. The photographs were never released. The forest grows back every year. It hides everything. Number 12. The sunken city beneath Lake Bosumtwi, Ghana. Lake Bosumtwi sits in a near-perfect circle in the forest of southern Ghana. It's beautiful, almost surreally so. Calm waters ringed by dense jungle, no rivers flowing in or out. Local fishermen have fished here for centuries using only wooden planks, never boats, because their tradition holds that the lake is sacred. A god lives beneath the surface, they say, and the god does not like to be disturbed. Tourists who have dived these waters against local advice have reported something that doesn't appear on any geological survey. Approximately 30 meters down, running along sections of the lake floor, are what appear to be stone structures, wall formations, aligned too precisely to be natural, too deeply embedded to be recent. This one is different, because unlike most mysteries on this list, the local Ashanti people have always known something was down there. Their oral histories reference a city that went into the water, not destroyed, not abandoned, but submerged, on purpose. By whom or what, no account makes clear. The lake has no outlet. Whatever went in is still there. Number 11. The Valley of Death, Danakil Depression, Ethiopia. The Danakil Depression in northeastern Ethiopia is, without question, one of the most hostile environments on the surface of this planet. Temperatures here regularly exceed 55 degrees Celsius. The ground is covered in sulfuric acid pools that bubble and hiss like something from another world. The air smells of rotten eggs so strong it triggers nausea within minutes of arrival. Geologists call it one of the most volcanically active zones on Earth. Locals call it the gateway to hell, and several tourists, lured by photographs of its alien yellow and orange acid flats that went viral on Instagram, have called it too late, a terrible mistake. The tourists who have been seriously injured or killed in the Danakil in recent years almost always made the same mistake. They wandered off marked paths, drawn by a better photograph, a more dramatic angle, a different color pool. The ground in the Danakil looks solid. It often is not. In 2012, a crust collapsed beneath a tourist from Norway. He was recovered, but the acid burns he sustained covered 60% of his body. There are no hospitals within 3 hours of the depression. There are no roads in the traditional sense. There is only the heat, the hiss of the earth, and the distant figure of an Afar guide shaking his head, slowly, watching you walk toward the edge. Number 10. The Plague Villages of Madagascar. Madagascar. Most people think of lemurs, baobab trees, animated films. They don't think of plague. But Madagascar is the only country on Earth where the bubonic plague, the Black Death, that killed 1/3 of medieval Europe, is still active. Hundreds of cases every year, dozens of deaths, and tourists walking straight into highland villages where outbreaks are ongoing, with no warning, no sign, no barrier. These villages have stood for 500 years. Rats move freely between homes, markets, and the guest houses where visitors sleep. Several European travelers returned home and were hospitalized with symptoms their own doctors couldn't identify, because no one suspects plague in the 21st century. Not from a perfectly planned trip. You don't need a wrong turn, just one night in the wrong village. The WHO tracks these zones. Their reports sit in journals no travel blogger has ever read. Number 9. The Labyrinth Caves of the Gamtoos River, South Africa. No map, no guidebook, just a sound of water pulling you deeper inside limestone cliffs in South Africa's Eastern Cape. The caves are beautiful, crystal formations, endless chambers. That's the problem. Hikers follow the sound, go in without equipment, and keep walking. The walls hold sandrock paintings unlike anything else ever recorded. Figures that aren't human, aren't animal, ash and burnt bone in chambers from a period when no one should have been there. But the real danger is invisible. Seasonal rain floods these passages completely. No warning, no exit. In 2017, 2 backpackers spent 41 hours trapped underwater before rescue teams arrived. They walked in the same way everyone does, drawn by something beautiful. Number 8. The abandoned nuclear test sites of Algeria. Between 1960 and 1966, France detonated 17 nuclear devices in the Algerian Sahara. The Tuareg nomads living nearby received no warning, no evacuation. The craters are still there, some 40 meters wide. The warning signs were swallowed by sand decades ago. Travelers crossing the trans-Saharan route have camped inside them. Drawn by the strange green glass, the explosions fused from desert sand. Health surveys found elevated cancer rates in surrounding communities, generations after the last test. Children born 40 years later still carrying genetic markers from radiation exposure. France offered compensation in 2009 to its own military veterans only. The Algerians received nothing. The craters remain open. Number 7. The Island of the Shipwrecked Dead, Mozambique Channel. It has no name on any modern map. Sailors call it Ilha dos Afogados, the Island of the Drowned. Built, geologists believe, from 5 centuries of shipwrecks compressed into a single low strip of land. Beneath the surface, divers find wrecks stacked in layers. Iron over timber, descending into darkness. The oldest dating back 400 years. Every traveler who has camped there overnight reports the same thing. Voices at night. A low murmuring carried on the sea wind in languages no one recognizes, appearing to rise from beneath the ground. Acousticians say it's air moving through submerged wreck chambers as the tide shifts. Entirely explainable. Those who slept there say explainable isn't the same as forgettable. That was part 1. 7 places. 7 stories you won't find in any travel guide. And we haven't even reached the most dangerous ones yet. Part 2 is coming, including the place that appears on no map and the valley that someone, somewhere, clearly doesn't want you to know about.
If you made it this far, subscribe now so you don't miss part 2 the moment it drops. And tell me in the comments, which location from this part unsettled you the most?